Thank you. I'd like to welcome you all to the 2026 Underhill Town Meeting. My name is Bob Stone. I'm the chair of the Select Board. Last year, we elected Dan Manz as our town moderator for the year. Dan is unable to be with us today as he is in the hospital having surgery this morning. He assures me it is not serious, and he fully expects to be able to serve as the Underhill's town moderator after he gets out of the hospital. But Dan's absence leaves us in the position of needing to elect a new moderator for today's meeting. According to the Article 1, the next item is to elect a moderator for the ensuing year. Nominations for the position of moderator are now open. Yes, ma'am.
Penny Miller, 18 Bridal Trail. I nominate Nathan Goldman as moderator.
Nathan Goldman's been nominated. Are there any further nominations? Are there any further nominations? Are there any further nominations? If there are no other further nominations, nominations are now closed. All those in favor of Nate Goldman as the Town of Underhill's moderator, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed with a nay? The ayes carry. Please welcome Nate Goldman as our town moderator for today's meeting.
Thank you. Thank you very much for electing me moderator for this year. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm glad to see everybody who's here in person. My name is Nathan Goldman, also known as Nate. I've lived in Underhill since 1995. My wife and I live on Pleasant Valley Road, just south of the Tomasi Meadow. For around 40 years, I was a house builder, worked for a local construction company. Currently, I work from home, consulting with cooperatively owned mobile home parks on infrastructure projects. So you may ask, how did I find myself being asked to fill in for Dan Manz today? I'll give you a little background. I've been a firefighter with the Underhill Jericho Fire Department for 28 years. Among several other firefighter responsibilities, I served as the department's moderator for 5 to 6 years, running several meetings a year using Robert's Rules of Order as a guiding structure. For much of my time on the UGFD, Dan was an EMT and a leader at Essex Rescue, and so we worked together. Dan, there you go. From that relationship, Dan knew that I had experience with Robert's Rules, and when he learned recently, very recently, that he could not be here today, he remembered, that I had that experience and approached me about filling in for him this year. As I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, would agree, Dan has done a fantastic job as Underhill's town moderator for several years, and we certainly miss his steady guidance and his dulcet tones today. I will do my best to hold this high standard of careful, attentive, and efficient moderation of this meeting. I ask for your patience as I try to keep the rules and procedures of this town meeting straight, and your understanding as I use written notes and perhaps need to refer to a few guidance documents to help us all keep on task. We've done the Pledge of Allegiance, so we can move on. As an introduction, I want to share some remarks that Dan had prepared to start this meeting. The history of town meetings in Vermont, it's rich and colorful. Does anyone know when the first town meeting was held in Vermont? No? It was in Bennington in 1762. 1762 was a year of firsts. 6-year-old musical prodigy Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart played for the first time at the royal courts in Vienna and Munich. John Montagu, the 4th Earl of Sandwich, invented what would become an international culinary standard when he ordered bread with his meat so that he could keep his fingers from getting greasy while he played cards at the club. Excuse me. In Bennington, residents gathered on March 31st at the tavern and inn that John Fassett operated out of his home and held the first town meeting in what would later become Vermont. It is hard to imagine Vermont without town meetings. The tradition here predates the founding of the Republic of Vermont by 15 years and the admission of Vermont into the United States by nearly 30 years. Women wouldn't get to vote on any local issues until 1880, when tax-paying women were first allowed to participate in school elections. And women wouldn't gain the right to vote in municipal elections until 1917. Many aspects of daily life were determined at Vermont's early town meetings. Townspeople would decide which destitute people to house and feed, which to declare were not the town's responsibility. They also established the boundaries of school districts, of which there were sometimes a dozen or more tiny districts, since schools had to be within easy traveling distance by foot. They hired a preacher. They required every man to give a day's labor to clearing a town burial ground each year. They set the dates during which pigs were not allowed to roam freely, and even determined how to comport oneself at a town meeting. Enosburg voters decided that anyone showing up drunk and disruptive at town meeting or any other public function would be required to remove a tree stump from the dooryard of the local tavern. So I'll be keeping my eye out for drunken disorderliness here. Before we dig in on today's warrant articles, let me share a bit of information about the conduct of this town meeting and our expectations for the day. As moderator, my job is to help facilitate the will of the assembled body. I will do my best to preserve orderly dialogue and assure we stay on track with the required procedural elements. There are a few announcements to make as we get started. The polls are open behind you for voting on the Australian ballot question until 7 p.m. this evening. Please take an opportunity to cast your votes if you have not already done so. In the event of an emergency, there are 2 emergency exits, one near the front of the room and one where most of us had come in. Our animal control officer, Jennifer Silpy Katz, has asked me to remind everyone that dog re-registrations are due by April 1st. Our thanks to the Underhill Jericho Lions Club for arranging today's luncheon. We also thank the Historical Society for filling that role over many, many years. One important part of this job is to help us stay focused so we can complete our business by around noon. It is admittedly hard to concentrate when we're hungry. If we need more time to get through the articles before us today, we can take a break and set a time to return to business. It has been traditional for us to hear a few words from some of our state elected officials at some point during today's meeting. These folks are trying to get around and visit multiple towns. So when I see they have arrived, and they have arrived, so we'll find a logical place to get started. I will wait for a logical break in our business, and if there's no objection, they can speak to us. Edye, Graning, and Trevor Squirrell are here, and I think there might be a senator with you as well. No senator. Okay. So there are a few helpers that make this town meeting work. Mount Mansfield Community Television for their help with broadcast of this meeting. They're over here. Super Sounds DJ for the use of their sound equipment, also here. Our microphone runner, Amanda Bosley, is here. Ruby Bosley is in the home economics room providing childcare. The Underhill Jericho Lions Club, as I mentioned, for the luncheon, and the Historical Society, who has provided donuts and coffee in the hallway outside. Before we get to, I guess I'll get through the whole preamble if you have a few minutes here. Okay, great. Can I ask any of you who are not registered voters in the town of Underhill, please raise your hands and identify yourself. Okay, thank you. Only registered voters in the town are allowed to vote or make motions. If there is no objection, we have historically allowed non-residents who are town employees, town agents, or affiliates of groups that serve our community to speak about their reports or answer questions that may come up. And I don't see any objections. Calvin Coolidge once said, "Let men in office substitute the midnight oil for the limelight." At the outside of our work today, I would like to recognize some of the hardworking people who serve the town of Underhill. As I call these groups, if you are in one of these groups or have ever been in one, please rise and remain standing. Anyone who is, and it would be appropriate to offer applause. Anyone who is an employee of the town, please stand. Anyone who holds an elected office in the town, you can remain standing. Anyone who is a teacher or a staff member in Underhill or our local school district. Anyone who serves voluntarily on a town board, committee, or similar group. Anyone who provides services to Underhill through a private nonprofit group. Yes. So please look around you before people sit down, we gave some applause to everyone standing. That they burn the midnight oil to make Underhill the beautiful and special place it is to live. I also suggest that serving as these folks do contributes to their individual quality of life, as well as the collective community. I hope seeing these folks encourages everybody to find a subject you are passionate about and volunteer to serve. It can be very rewarding, and I say that from my own experience as well. All right, you may be seated if you'd like. Before I review Robert's Rules of Order, I guess it would be appropriate to allow our representatives. If there's no objection, I'll let them do their presentation now. We will need, you can use this microphone if you'd like.
Hi, good morning. I'm Edye Graning. I live in Jericho, and with Trevor, we represent Jericho and Underhill. I'm trying to find a way to not have the giant mic in my face. I serve on the Commerce and Economic Development Committee in the State House as the vice chair, and last fall I was the co-chair of the school district redistricting task force. I don't have a lot to say to folks today, just thanking you for your engagement. Happy to give a little bit of an overview, but probably after Trevor speaks, I'll take questions on anything that anybody has interest in what they want to hear more about or talk more about.
Good morning, everyone. For those who don't know who I am, I'm Trevor Squirrell, and I represent Jericho and Underhill with Edye, and I live in the town of Underhill. I'm in my 10th session at the State House, and I currently serve on the House Appropriations Committee, and I'm also chair of the Legislative Committee on Administrative Rules, which oversees all the rulemaking of state departments and agencies. From a budgetary standpoint, Vermont is faring better than most states at this time. However, we're facing the prospect of reduced federal funding that we've been receiving from the COVID period. and increased uncertainty about sort of customary federal funding as a result of actions by the current federal administration. We receive updates to the consensus revenue forecast 2 times per year, January and July. This dictates the amount of revenue available for budgeting. We received a slight revenue downgrade for FY26, which is reflected in the current FY26 Budget Adjustment Act, which just went to the governor. And the FY27 budget, which begins in July, will reflect the FY27 downgrade. These were about $8 or $9 million based on a $9.5 billion budget. In response to the unpredictable funding of the current federal administration, we established language in last year's budget that allowed a bit more flexibility for 3 reserve funds totaling about $110 million. Last October, we used about $7 million of one of those funds to backfill the reach-up shortfall that came about as a result of the federal shutdown. We are having ongoing discussions about additional use of these reserve funds for other shortfalls, but hopefully we won't need to use those. I'll be around this morning to take questions and discuss issues with you. And I want to thank you for your support the last 10 years. And as with Edye, we're glad to take questions. Thank you.
I'm not seeing any questions. Is that you're ready to get on with town meetings? Oh, there's a question right here in the.
I want to thank you both for your service. I'm David Weaver, Jackson Hill Road. I want to thank both of you for your service to the community. I'm curious, as I learn more about the certification of Indigenous tribes in Vermont, will you support opening those books back up, maybe taking a new look at this situation, especially as these recognized tribes are providing educational materials that move a certain agenda forward in our schools?
So I don't know a lot about this. The last time that the books were open was before I was in the State House. And so I have been trying to keep up and engage, but I don't know what's going to happen this session. I know that our Native community has a lot to offer and is very engaged in Vermont and have provided me personally with a lot of great information and support. So I am open to the conversation, but I don't have depth of knowledge here, and so I don't want to get out over my skis.
I'm with Edye on this. I don't want to get over my skis either, but thanks for the question. Appreciate it.
Hi there, Travis B.B. Woodard, Poker Hill Road. I am interested to hear what you and your colleagues are working on to stem the unsustainable growth in property taxes in Vermont. I'm a little concerned that it feels like I'm watching the work in Montpelier take a turn that is not going to result in property tax relief or a downturn in the unsustainable growth in property taxes. So I'd be interested to hear what you're working on and how quickly you might expect a change in the concerning trend that we've experienced.
Yeah, so we're in a tough spot right now because the system that we have today, which is Act 127, why I ran for office, puts our town specifically, our district specifically, in a really bad position where the number of students that we have are counting for fewer students than most areas across the state because we don't have a lot of students that are on free and reduced lunch or English language learners or some of the other categories that give our student count a higher number. So our taxes here specifically are significantly higher and going up faster than they are in other areas. And I'm a taxpayer too, and my taxes are gonna go up a lot. And I think that's important to know when we're talking about this. So we're in a tough spot, right? Education is one of those areas that has to be taught by people. We can't mechanize it. And so there is an inherent cost that as wages go up and as benefits go up, we have to pay that. At the same time, we have local control in this state, and we have towns that have not enough kids to support their schools. And that costs all of us money because of the way we do property taxes in the state, right? Every single, gosh, we're in my wheelhouse and I'm gonna get super weedy here, and I apologize to anybody who really doesn't wanna go there. So all of these taxes are borne by all of us, right? So we all pay to maintain tiny schools across the state. And in some places we have to, because there just aren't enough people. And in some places we don't have to, but people want it because they've always had it that way. Whether it's better for students, because often it's not, whether it's better for teachers, because often it's not, and whether it's better for taxpayers, because often it's not. But nobody wants to change, and so how do we get there? And even with Act 73, which we have in place right now, we don't get there for another 2 years. So we're in this spiral that we have right now with costs going up. I mean, I'm gonna say this truly just like this. We only had a 7.5% increase in healthcare costs this year. To say only 7.5% is big because we had 15% a couple years ago. So that's something that the legislature did to reduce the cost of healthcare, which is making a difference, and it's still going up faster than inflation, right? So what are we doing? We're looking at how do we use the general fund to take some of the pressure off of property taxes. We're looking at making sure that people fill out their homestead forms so that if you can get a discounted rate, you get your discounted rate. We're looking at making sure that second homes that are truly second homes that aren't used for all year round, not camps, those are different, but second homes are taxed at a higher rate. We're trying to figure that out. We're trying to figure out both how to reduce cost in schools and how to make sure that our taxes are used well. And it's slow and it's painful for all of us. And I don't have a good answer for you, and I hate to come here and not have a good answer, but we are working on it a lot.
Yeah, that's a fairly comprehensive answer from Edye as far as where we are right now. Real challenge, and Edye touched on the fact that there are a lot of drivers in our school budgets, such as healthcare, and probably over the last 10 to 15 years, the ask of school districts and schools to take on social services and human services types of responsibilities. Now we look at trying to separate that out, property tax general fund, which Edye spoke to. Now in the budget this year, and it's a real dilemma, but we have set aside about $110 million to soften the blow of property taxes, but obviously that doesn't solve the problem going forward. I will say to everyone here that for all of us in the state legislature, this issue is front and center every day that we're in the State House. And we're working diligently on that, and thank you.
I'm just curious what approaches you're considering to cut spending, besides, as you mentioned, consolidating the schools.
Yeah, so we, part of Act 73 did set minimum class sizes. And so if you have minimum class size, it's averages, but minimum class sizes, that is a way that you ensure that school costs stabilize a little bit. I think when you're asking to cut spending, it's really hard to do that because budgets are voted locally, right? Today, we get to vote on our district's budget. Our district's budget is trying to level fund, but it's still almost 6% increase because costs are going up so much. So, and we are actually cutting, I think, 6.5 FTEs in our district right now after cutting last year and cutting the year before. So we're still, right, cutting costs and doing everything we can to make sure that students aren't harmed by that. And districts across the state are trying to do that. So statewide, we don't have, in the legislature, we don't have the I guess we kind of do have the ability. In the legislature, we don't have the enough people all with the same vision to make a drastic change in how we spend or what we can spend money on in schools. And I think that's really the issue. And when Trevor talked about the service supports that are more in schools now than they ever have been before, that's huge. It's $50 million in the budget 2 years ago. I don't know what it is in this year's budget. But that's, statewide again, not just our district, but statewide, so.
I guess my follow-up question would be then, is there anything we can do to change that unsustainable dynamic? Like where people don't have an incentive to reduce their budgets for whatever reason? Or it's out of their control, like you said, with the support for disabilities.
Yeah, so it's not even disabilities, it's mental health supports, right? We have more, we need more supports for our kids than we ever have. Act 73, which we passed last year, is supposed to put us on a path to a foundation formula, which means we get a set amount of money for our kids and we no longer vote on a budget in town by town. So that's what the path is going forward. There are a couple of things that have to happen this year in order to get there. And will that fix the problem? I don't know the answer to that, because if we're still working to fund based on what we need to have in schools, I don't know that it fixes that problem, because level fund, right? So it might cause different problems. So I don't have a good answer. I know way too much about this to be like, maybe this will work and maybe that'll work. I have lots of ideas, but whether there's enough support in the legislature to make anything happen, that's another question.
Thank you.
I see a couple more. In the interest of time, it'd be great if we could, hopefully, we know everybody else who'd asked a question at this point. So.
You first? Go ahead. Gwen Gustafson, Poker Hill Road. I have a question that's a curiosity question. I understand why everything is getting more and more expensive. But as a retiree living in a state where my Social Security is taxed, I'm wondering if there's any possibility that that's going to be looked at eventually in Vermont. A lot of people I know are moving out because they have to pay taxes on their Social Security payments. Like I said, a curiosity question.
Yeah, there are no current plans to make any additional changes to taxing on Social Security this year. That's an issue that would be before House Ways and Means. We have made some adjustments to that in terms of increasing the adjusted gross, the adjusted gross income or those issues so that you're taxed less, I guess. It's not a good answer to you. It's not 100%. And again, it is one of those issues. Affordability is an issue. We hear it a lot at the federal level now because people are bannering that around, but it's been an issue in Vermont for some time now as we discuss how to lessen the burden. Thank you.
And while the mic is walking, I'll just talk about that in a broader perspective, because what we're looking at is making sure that people who don't have a lot of money don't have to pay a lot of money. And so we're not looking at it single issue, right? How much taxes you pay on one specific thing. But what we're trying to do is have a holistic policy. If you don't have a lot of money, you don't have to pay a lot of money. If you have a lot of money, you should pay more. And so whether this specific issue is taken up, it will be part of that broader policy.
Good morning, Stash Kowalski, Downs Road. I'm going to admit I'm behind on these topics. We only moved here 2 months ago and we've been spending more time unpacking than we have catching up on things. But I'm hearing two parts of the balanced budget equation here. You either have to cut services or increase taxes. What I'm curious about, and what I haven't had time to dive into yet, is what is the state doing to increase the tax base? What are you doing to get people here, to get more businesses here? Are you offering tax holidays? Are you offering tuition incentives to out-of-state students at the colleges to stay here for 2 years after they graduate? What's going down that road to increase the population or at least prevent the population leaving? Thank you.
Yeah, so the Green Mountain Jobs Program that not a lot of people know about is if you go to school in Vermont and get a job and live and work, so work in Vermont, live in Vermont after, you can get $5,000 over 2 years as a credit back to you on your student loans. So that's something that actually came out of my committee a couple years ago, and we're hoping to keep more people in the state. We're also looking at how do we get more housing built so that people can afford affordable housing, missing middle housing, so that people can afford to live here. And different towns are taking the state up on how to fund that. So that's the CHIP program that we passed last year to help support infrastructure for more housing. So we are doing some things like that. How do we bring more people in? We had too many people leave last year, and our employers need more employees, and we need to be building a robust economy, because choosing to stay the way we are is making a choice to not move forward, and other states are going to keep moving forward. So thanks, that was a good question.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, we'll get one more.
Bernie Isbell from McClellan Farm Road. This question is to you, Edie. You are our representative, but you're also the chair of the MMU school district. And I read the flyer, and I know this is a school issue, but it's a tax issue for every one of us taxpayers. And in that brochure, it alluded to the fact that you had cut 6.5 FTEs, and I know that taxes went up through the state negotiation of 7.4%. However, if you look at the detail of the school budget, salaries and wages, not benefits, salaries and wages went up 6.18%. That's your major number, and I don't understand if you decreased your FTEs, and I know you talked about additional services for mental health, and I totally understand that, but you also mentioned that part of the increase was because of the collective bargaining. And when you've got a budget that you're increasing salaries and wages by 6.18%, something I think kind of has to give. So I guess my question to you is, part of that to do with the collective bargaining, and I'm assuming it's negotiated wage increases. How long are those collective bargaining recent negotiations still going to be in place? Are we going to see this same situation next year in the salaries and wages, or is the union up for renegotiation next year? Because this is unsustainable.
Yep. So we just negotiated a 3-year contract. So we know what the costs are going to be for the next 2 years, which is incredibly helpful when you're budgeting, to know what your costs are going to be going forward. We have to Kevin, do you remember? I'm phoning a friend here. I don't remember. I think it's around 4% for the next two years, somewhere in that range, for a year. We know as a school district that if we want to have the best outcomes for our kids, the number one thing that gives us that is high quality teachers. So we choose to invest in high quality teachers. Not only do we bring them in, but we make sure that they have the professional development that they need, and we do our best to support them, which is really hard as our budget keeps getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And I'm sure there are a lot of educators in the room who are going to tell me that we're not doing enough, and I know we're not doing enough, but we're doing the best that we can with the money that we have. So our high school has been the best in the state, 6 out of the last 7 years. Before that, we were in the top 3 for about the 10 years before. So we do a good job with the education that we provide here in our town, in our district. And it's expensive. And this is, like I said, we can't mechanize education. There's a teacher that has to be teaching our kids. And so we're doing everything we can to try to figure out how to do it as cheaply as possible. And we closed a school in the district and repurposed it. One of the things that we do that nobody talks about is we bring in programs to support kids that are that are struggling with general education, so that we don't have to spend money outside of our district and send those kids outside of our district. So we have a program for elementary, for middle, and for high school kids. We keep them close, we help them integrate back into our district, and that costs us less money. But it's not flashy, but we do it. And we're doing that with kids even at a higher level of need, and we're getting some other districts sending their kids to us for that, so they're paying us for that. So we're doing a lot of things to take the costs down within our district. And again, this is not a meeting for that. I'm happy to have conversations with folks about this later, but we're trying everything we can, and we're using all the levers that we have. And we're hoping that we get some more levers from the state and some better support. And we are feeling the pain too. We live in the district, we pay taxes. My taxes in Jericho are gonna go up about 22%. So, and I'm getting reassessed, so maybe it'll even go up more than that. So I 100% am on the same page with everybody. I agree, the taxes are too high. We're paying an awful lot for it. We happen to be getting a lot for it in our district because our schools are so good. But yeah, it's not a great place to be.
Thank you. I know there's probably lots to talk about with our representatives, and I thank you both for being here. I can just say that they're, from my experience, they're easy enough to get in touch with, so please feel free to contact them. And we will move along with our meeting here. Thank you. Okay, getting back to the meeting here. Robert's Rules of Order are the basic rules required for town meeting, except where state law takes precedence. The simple purpose of Robert's Rules is to facilitate orderly discussion and decision-making so that all stakeholders, in this case you, the citizens of Underhill, have the ability to weigh in on decisions in our community. It is designed to balance allowing individuals to be able to reasonably voice their questions, concerns, and opinions while limiting the ability of any individual to overly dominate the discussion. To that end, Robert's Rules of Order can be a bit of a foreign language for many people. So here's a quick refresher in the elements you will likely need to know for doing business today. An article must be moved, seconded by the body, and then restated by the moderator before it is under consideration and debate on the article before it is under consideration and debate on the article can begin. After I restate the motion, the person who made the motion gets the first opportunity to speak if they wish. Debate may then begin with other people interested in speaking about the motion. Once you have spoken on a particular article one time, you will not be recognized a second time until all the other voters who wish to speak have had an opportunity to do so. If there's no objection, we will follow our traditional limit of speaking, about 3 minutes in duration. I will do my best to keep track of time. All motions, remarks, and discussions need to be addressed to the moderator up front. I will do my best to recognize people in the order I see hands being raised. Speaking to the moderator helps us avoid back and forth exchanges between individuals. After you are recognized, please wait until the microphone is passed to you so that everybody can hear. Each time you begin to speak, and I saw this was being done, I didn't give this instruction beforehand, please use the microphone and begin by giving your name and tell us where you live. So for example, I'm Nathan Goldman, I live on Pleasant Valley Road. This is very helpful for folks who watch this meeting on video and also for the people who are taking notes. Once introduced, articles may only have one amendment at a time associated with them on the floor being discussed. Likewise, an amendment on the floor may itself be amended, but only one at a time. It is easy to have the conversation drift off the original motion, so please do your best to stay focused on the article under consideration, and I will point out when we are drifting from discussing that article or the particular amendment we're working on. If you get lost in where we are, you can rise and you can say, point of information. I will try to halt debate at that point and ask what your point is. This is not an opportunity to seek information about the subject being debated on, which would be part of the regular discussion, but rather it's sort of a procedural question to find out where we are in the process. For instance, once we vote on this amendment to the main motion, is there an opportunity to make another amendment before we vote on the main motion? You could ask something like that. So a quick comment about Article 5, and I will read the entire warning here in a moment. But Article 5 is to transact any other business thought proper when met. Under this article, we have a considerable latitude to discuss other subjects of town business or interest to this group that we did not consider elsewhere in the meeting. I remind you that we cannot take any binding action under this article because binding action would need to be warned. This article is for informational purposes only. The official warning for today's town meeting has 6 Australian ballot articles, Articles 6 through 11. As such, they may not be amended. These articles are discussable today on the floor, but we will not be voting on them at all. On Thursday, February 26th, the Select Board held an informational meeting, an informational hearing on Articles 6 through 11 as required by state statute. When we get to those articles on our agenda, we will not need a motion to introduce them or a second. I will just read the article as printed, and we can have some discussion and move on to the next one. In my past experiences, Underhill has been blessed with civil dialogue and debate on our past town meetings. There was an article in VT Digger a couple of years ago about Peg Mott, the town moderator in Putney. Peg is a big believer in the institution of town meeting and an opportunity for dialogue. She said, quote, "I am very interested in people not dissing one another, not villainizing one another, not dehumanizing one another. In a democracy, better decisions will be made if you have lots of people around who don't think the same and can check each other's opinions." She went on to say, "Democracy is not going to work if everyone's afraid of each other," she said. "It can get kind of nasty, but I prefer that to the idea that everyone has to think the same way." In a spirit of encouraging kind and respectful communication at this meeting, I'd like to begin by, and Dan has done this in the past, begin by sharing the town meeting invocation from our neighbors in Danville. It reads, "We are gathered today in civil assembly. We gather as a community in the oldest sense of the word. We gather to learn and lead us to decisions about what is right and what is wrong. Let us advocate for our positions, but not at the expense of others. Let us remember that there is an immense gap between saying, 'I am right,' and saying, 'I believe I am right,' and that our neighbors with whom we disagree are good people with hopes and dreams as true and high as ours. And let us always remember that in the end, caring for each other in this community is of far greater importance than any difference we may have." All right, well, we can get to the business at hand. I will start by reading the warning for this year's meeting, which is found on page 1 and 2 in the town report. Official warning, Town of Underhill, Annual Town Meeting, March 3rd, 2026. The legal voters of the Town of Underhill in the County of Chittenden, State of Vermont, are hereby notified and warned to meet at Browns River Middle School, 20 River Road, in Jericho, Vermont, on Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026, beginning at 9 o'clock in the forenoon, to transact the following business. Article 1, to elect a moderator for the ensuing year. Article 2, to hear reports in the town report. Article 3, shall the voters approve general fund expenditures of $1,996,715, of which $1,570,526 shall be raised by taxes and $426,189 by non-tax revenue. Article 4, shall the voters approve total highway fund expenditures of $3,160,966, of which $1,881,013 shall be raised by taxes, and $1,279,953 by non-tax revenue. Article 5, to transact any other business thought proper when met. The legal voters of the town of Underhill in the Chittenden County, state of Vermont, are hereby further notified and warned to meet at the Browns River Middle School, 20 River Road in Jericho, Vermont, on Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026, between the hours of 7 o'clock in the forenoon, at which time the polls will open, and 7 o'clock in the afternoon, at which time the polls will close, to vote by Australian ballot upon the following articles. Article 6, to elect all town officers and school directors as required by law. Article 7, shall the voters of the town approve appropriating $1,000 to support Wood for Good, a Jericho-based nonprofit that donates firewood to be raised by taxes to support town residents in need of wood for heating and other purposes. Article 8, shall the voters of the town allocate $300,000 from the fiscal year 2025 budget surplus to the Highway Contingency Reserve Fund. Article 9, shall the voters of the town authorize the purchase of a pre-owned rubber tire backhoe at the cost of not to exceed $60,000 to be raised by taxes. Article 10, shall the voters of the town authorize the town's option to purchase a 2021 dump truck currently being leased by the town at a cost not to exceed $40,000 to be raised by taxes. Article 11, shall the voters of Underhill advise the select board to adopt the following pledge? We affirm our commitment to freedom, justice, and equality for the Palestinian people and all people, and we oppose all forms of racism, bigotry, discrimination, and oppression, and we declare ourselves an apartheid-free community, and to that end, we pledge to join others in working to end all support of Israel's apartheid regime, settler colonialism, and military occupation. Okay, now we're going to work through the articles one at a time. The first article is to elect a moderator. We've done that, so we can move on from there to Article 2. Article 2, to hear the reports in the town report. A motion on this article is appropriate at this time, but does not require a second, and there is nothing we need to vote on after we've heard the reports. Is there a motion to begin discussion on Article 2? Oh, we have that motion. Okay. All in favor of the motion to hear the town reports, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes appear to have it, and the ayes have it. To begin with, we'll walk through the reports of town officers, boards, and committees as printed beginning on page 19 in the town report. I will read the title of each report, and there will be an opportunity for anyone to ask questions or make comments. And I'll start with the town officers and committees and boards. The select board's report is on pages 19 and 20. Does the select board have any comments before? Are there any comments or questions on the select board report? Yes.
Kale Romanoff, River Road. I was just wondering if there's a status update on the sidewalk project in Underhill Center. I didn't see it in the report.
Yes, so sidewalk report. We've completed the surveying for the sidewalk.
Could you just state your...
Brad Holden, Town
Yeah.
Administrator.
Yeah.
So we've, and it's also written in my report as well, an update. if you read my report, but it says that we've hired a surveying firm, we've done the existing conditions surveying plan, we've consulted with the Agency of Natural Resources, we had a wetland ecologist come out and flag some wetlands of concern near the schoolhouse. We sent that along to our engineer, Krebs and Lansing, who's in the process of doing a preliminary design. And this would be from basically Beartown Road, continuing towards the school as far as we can get with the ARPA money that we have. So that's the update.
Any other questions on the select board's report? Okay, not seeing any, we can move on to the town administrator's report, which is on page 21. Any questions for the town administrator? Seeing none, we can move on to the town assessor, which is, their report is on page 22. Any questions for the town assessor? Seeing none, the highway supervisor report on pages 23 and 24. Any questions for the highway supervisor? Okay, not seeing any. The planning commission report is on page 25. Any questions for the planning commission? See none. The conservation commission is on pages 26 and 27. Are there any reports, any questions for the conservation commission? The zoning administrator, their report is on page 28 through 30. Any questions for the zoning administrator? Seeing none. The development review board, pages 31 through 32. Any questions for the development review board? Okay, not seeing any. The Energy Committee, page 33. Any questions for the Energy Committee? No. The Recreation Committee report is found on page 34 through 35. Any questions or comments for the Recreation Committee? No. The Highway Infrastructure Committee, pages 36 and 37 is where that report is. Any questions for the Highway Infrastructure Committee? Oh, there is one.
Cale Romanoff, River Road again. This might go to Brad as well. It just seemed like this was the best spot. Also tied into the sidewalk. I know this summer we're doing the Pleasant Valley Bridge way up near Pleasant Valley, the farms and stuff. But there's a very similar bridge in the village next to Beartown Road and St. Thomas Church that is quite unsafe for pedestrians and ties kind of into that sidewalk. And I wonder if there was any plans to address that bridge in the next couple of years, knowing that it's not going to happen this year.
Yeah, so like Bridge 7, which is located at Pleasant Valley and Dean Road, is the one we'll be replacing this year starting in June. That also, the bridge that Cale's referring to is a 28 bridge, so it was taken out during the flood of 27. So each, biannually, we have or not biannually, but the frequency varies, but every couple of years the state comes through and does a structural analysis on all our bridges. And that particular bridge has been deemed to be safe. I know it's not safe for pedestrians because it's quite narrow. But that was a style bridge that was in mass production to get our roads back open after the 27 flood. it's not part of the scope of the sidewalk that we're working on to date, but it's something that certainly would have to be looked at if the sidewalk were to continue towards the store.
Any other questions or comments for the Highway Infrastructure Committee? The Forest Fire Warden report is on page 38. Any questions or comments for the Forest Fire Warden? And the Tree Warden's report is on page 39. Any questions or comments for the Tree Warden's report? Okay, seeing none. This article also includes a list of organizations which are not part of the town government, but provide services to citizens which the town support. These 21 reports begin on page 45 and go through page 82 in the town report. In the interest of time, if there's no objection, rather than reading each organization's name and awaiting response for each, I can open the floor for anyone who would like to comment or ask about any of these organizations. Is there anybody who would like to speak to the list of outside organizations the town supports? I don't see any, so we can move on to Article 3. Article 3, shall the voters approve total general fund expenditures of $1,996,715, of which $1,570,526 shall be raised by taxes and $426,189 by non-tax revenue. A motion is in order to open discussion on Article 3. Is there a motion? Motion, is there a second on the motion? I see several people. All in favor of opening, I'm sorry, I actually don't have to ask for a vote to open. I forgot about that. I don't have to ask for a vote to open the discussion. Discussion is now on the floor. Before we begin discussion, I just want to point out the details of this article are found on the fiscal year 2027 general expenditures budget table, lines 55 through 208, which are on pages 10 through 12 in the town budget. It also does include the revenues, which are for both Article 3 and Article 4 on lines 1 through 54. So is there any discussion? Let me read it one more time. Article 3 is, shall the voters approve total general fund expenditures of $1,996,715, of which $1,570,526 shall be raised by taxes and $426,189 by non-tax revenue. Is there any discussion on the motion? Yes,
Good morning. I have a bad cold, so I'm going to stand back here and hope not to cough. My name is Laura Seaman. I live on Range Road. I had my dates written down, but my head's a little foggy. January, I sent some messages to the select board regarding the fact that last year, is it still going? Last year, I noticed in the town budget list that it was unknown to me, but I read that the town employees receive 100% medical insurance premiums paid by the town, and that surprised me. Just the mere fact that the last time I had 100% paid premiums from my employer was the late 80s. So I asked the select board to consider a change in light of the fact that As I stated, I think the majority of people in this community, this country, don't have 100% paid medical insurance premiums. I listed federal employees, the military, state employees, even folks on Medicare will pay for their parts B, C, and D. I attended a meeting in February when I had not received any kind of response, and during that meeting I was told that since I was present at the meeting I would receive a formal response, and I have yet to receive one. I'm just curious if the community is aware of this and if there's any concern like mine. I looked at the budget line-by-line document that's prepared on the website, and line 58 under Select Board, payroll payments, that line was described in text, meaning it's not listed here. I think this is a little confusing. I don't believe that those employee HRA payments are for Select Board. I think that's just where they were put. But in the line-by-line description, it was given that line 58 totaled 196,300 was the HRA payments for town employees. Again, that's on the line-by-line budget explanation document that's on the website. As an employee of the school district, I worked for the MMU school district, and previous to that, Essex Westford, so I have 15 years in school finance, and I paid 19% of my premiums. I was told that this is scrutinized every year and that they look at wages and benefits of neighboring towns. And Jericho was mentioned in several instances. Jericho, I stopped and spoke to them. Jericho pays 10% of their premiums and has for the last 18 years, according to the person I spoke to. So I just did a cursory calculation of 10% of this total, 196,300. If town employees paid 10%, which is still pretty low, it would be 19,630. And I know on a large scale that's not a huge number, but it's a number that would impact our budget. I think every line item should be scrutinized. And this is not a reflection of my value for the work that the town employees do, and I stated that numerous times. My objection is that I think it's out of the norm today, and costs keep rising as we've seen. I think that having a small group of people, which is the town of Underhill, providing 100% medical coverage, insurance premiums, is, I don't have that. I don't have that benefit, and I feel like there should be some, I feel like in today's situations, town employees can have a little bit of a share of that. So I guess I'm just here to present that. I know I had more, but I'm not. I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the select board want to, one person in the select board want to answer any of that, or is there any other discussion?
I think what we can do is, the select board has a subcommittee of folks on the board that has been working hard and looking into this particular question. And I think that's Maureen and Dan. I don't know if you want to get into or prepared to discuss this a little bit. I'll defer to you guys.
We have just begun our assessment, and with due respect, the insight from Laura was received and heard, and a little bit late to act on this budget. Healthcare, as you know, is done by the calendar year, not the fiscal year. So we had to look at plans and make that decision, you know, already at the end of 2025. So we will be meeting, Maureen and I, and with the help of VLCT, the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, who has a handle on the different towns and what they provide. We will do that kind of assessment, and we will be transparent about that. And if anyone has questions, they can certainly ask, and we will deliver. But we have just started working on that. And do you have anything to add?
Briefly. And I want to thank you, Laura, for the concern. I think there is, similar to the school board or the school budget, right? The cost of our employees is a significant cost, and we recognize that. But we also want to acknowledge that we are really lucky in the town of Underhill to have the longevity of the staff that we have. Not having constant turnover has been a real saver of money for the town. And being able to have that kind of institutional knowledge in this town, I think, is a real benefit to us. But it's also a real cost. And so we are really trying to look at this kind of, as Edye said, like holistically, that we want to be able to understand where there are ways that we can make shifts that are reasonable and effective, and without making us a less attractive employer for the employees that we have and future employees that we might want to attract. So we really appreciate the feedback, and are going to be working hard to try and come up with solutions that are cost effective but also help protect our employees. So thank you.
I see a question over here.
Pam Parshall from Range Road. Just as a point of curiosity, I guess the moderator has to do this, but would you ask any employed people who are not employed by the town to raise their hands if they have 100% coverage without having to provide anything themselves?
I think you can do that, just if it's brief. It's not a vote.
No, just as a point of curiosity. So how many people here who are employed have 100% coverage on their health insurance from their employers, but not town employees? So I see, one hand, maybe? Two? I think that speaks for itself.
Discussion on the motion. I see two up on the stands.
Hey, Cal Romanoff, River Road again. I mentioned earlier I work for the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. Not that I work there, but they brought it up earlier. So I deal with a lot of different towns in my work, and I'll note municipal employees generally make less than their private counterparts, and towns across the state are having difficulty finding employees, finding people to fill positions. I personally think anything we can do to incentivize people to work for the town and to stay to work for the town should be preserved. And in the end, how much would we really save in taxes by cutting this out? I think this is a great benefit to preserve employment and to entice people to work for the town when we need someone new.
There's another question up in the...
Anton Kelsey, live on Pleasant Valley Road in Underhill. 2 quick points. One is I support unequivocally the benefits and salary for our hardworking employees. They do a great job. I work with them quite a bit as the chair of the Underhill Recreation Committee, and the knowledge and expertise and professionalism is fantastic. Second, the line of questioning on this, I just disagree with. And I think the question should be, how do we get it so everyone's health care is affordable and reasonable, and not how do we cut everybody else's so it's less? And so I would just like to say, as a town, I would rather have that question be what we work towards, is affordable health care, not my health care is not good, so yours shouldn't be either. Thanks.
Any other discussion on the motion? Yes.
Amy Gallaudet, Pleasant Valley Road. Different budget question? Okay?
Anything
Yeah.
on the budget is, yeah.
Okay. 142, I am looking at a large increase in services from our sheriff and a decrease in traffic calming. Can I get some information about what I'll be seeing from the sheriff that would be different if we approve that?
Go ahead, Bob.
Line
Get a little
1
closer to the mic.
Yeah. Line 142, we do contract with the Chittenden County Sheriff to monitor speeding. This year, we requested an increase to an average of 15 hours per week instead of 10 per week in fiscal year 26. We'll be front-loading the hours in the summer and fall during the time that the Pleasant Valley Road will be detoured due to Bridge 7's construction and to keep the traffic on the Irish Settlement Road under control. So that was the rationale for many of us on the board to look at that line item, as we know that we are going to be closing that bridge on Pleasant Valley Road, and concerned about the traffic that then is going to be filtering onto likely the Irish Settlement Road. So we wanted to make sure that the residents on Irish Settlement had some protection as far as calming and enforcement, and trying to keep folks from going too fast.
Any other discussion on the motion?
Nate, I'll just, there was also a question on line 143 from the last question. We had purchased several, I call them the blinky speed signs because they slow me down. We had purchased several over the past year. We're not purchasing an additional bank of them. We're just maintaining the software. So that's the reason for the decrease on the calming. But those, the speed monitoring signs are they're deployed, and they'll be present throughout our community, and we're collecting data on that. And that will also help inform us how much sheriff time we will need and where we need it. So that'll help us down the road for strategically placing our sheriff.
Thanks.
Bernie, Isabel McCollum Farm Road. If you look at the budget, the salary increases are a 3% cost of living increase. The average of the insurance is anywhere from 2.5% to 4.5%, 5%, which in my opinion is extremely reasonable. The board, the gentleman over on the board said that they are taking a look at that, and in looking at the town employees' salaries that are listed here, I think they're extremely reasonable, and I think this budget shows a lot of fiscal restraint, and not to dig into anything, but the question I brought up earlier when the legislators were here, when you have a decrease in FTEs and an increase in salaries and wages in the school district, okay, not benefits. Benefits were 6 to 7% because of the state negotiated. I think this budget is much more fiscally responsible than our school district budget. So between the board looking at the insurance costs, which I think appear very reasonable anyways, I'm for the proposal.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the motion? I see two up on the stands. Wait for the microphone, please.
Ed Grimley, Spruce Lane. I'd like to go back to the sheriff, please. I frequently come down the Krug Road, make a left-hand turn onto the River Road, and the current property owners on the corner have put up a fence. And consequently, what's happened is there's a stop sign there, okay? And we also have children that play right in front of St. Thomas's. They're always out in the road or up on the bank. And I have observed on a daily basis people going through that stop sign, either halfway through and then stopping because they really can't see around the fence. And yet I've never seen the sheriff give anybody a ticket for going through that stop sign. So I ask, where is the sheriff?
Go ahead.
So it's difficult to pinpoint exactly the day of the week where the sheriff is. We are limited between 6 and 10 hours a week for the sheriff to be covering the town. So can't possibly be, everywhere all the time. We do receive some, although it's not budgeted through the Vermont State Police, but I would encourage that if you are aware of infractions like that, to contact the sheriff's office or contact the Vermont State Police and make them aware so that they can adjust their patrol. Noting the date and time of when you see those type of events would be critically important for those folks to, advise the motorists to, change their behavior.
Does the sheriff submit some sort of a routine, weekly, daily, monthly, so that kind of know where his routine is? Or is it just random?
It's random as far as it's not like every Tuesday and Thursday from 9 to, 2. It's a completely randomized, time of when the sheriff, it's usually during daylight hours.
Okay.
There was another question behind you? No? Okay. Any other, yes, I see some on the side.
Penny Miller, 18 Bridle Trail. Could anyone speak to line 206 Town Hall capital expenditures planned for the coming year? What's planned at the Town Hall?
So line 206, the capital expenditure for the town, still has $161,147 earmarked for the federal ARPA funds to make renovations and improvements to the great room. The income to cover these is noted on line 52 because those funds are now considered use of surplus funds. We will only utilize the amount of revenue we require to cover the expenses incurred during the year. They are expensed. The plan at this point is to focus on stabilizing the floor, reflooring the great room. We have some tentative plans and drawings for a comprehensive upgrade to the room. However, based on feedback from contractors, the floor is the primary or first priority, is to get that taken care of first.
There was another question behind, yep.
Guy Kennedy on South Hill. I'm just circling back just briefly to the whole issue with health insurance and the payment. It really kind of disturbs me that I don't want to call it petty, and if everybody doesn't get a cookie and one person does, maybe everybody should get a cookie. But if the board determines that it's appropriate to have all the employees contribute to their health insurance, I suggest, being that they are a great value, that we just increase their salaries to compensate, and then won't be an issue in the future because they'll be contributing and people won't feel that they're getting something that nobody else is getting.
Any other discussion on the motion? There's one up in the stands.
Karen McKnight, Beartown Road. I have a question again about the sheriffs. It's been my observation that the sheriff does come, but it's not when it seems like it's very busy with cars going through, especially Underhill Center. Has there ever been a time study done to say, these are the times when it gets particularly dicey around Underhill Center? These would be good times for you to show up for the sheriff. That's one question. And my second one is there an incentive so that the sheriff, when they do make a stop, what happens to that fine?
So it's my understanding that the sheriff on a routine basis makes contact with folks at the town hall. I believe he speaks with Sherry and with Brad. And they convey what they are hearing from the community as far as their concerns to the sheriff. What the sheriff then does with that information, I think they plan the best they can to try to take care of those issues when they come up. As far as the revenue, there's no incentive if someone is violating the law and they issue a ticket, then it goes through its normal process just like anywhere else. There's no particular bonus if they get so many cars that are going over the speed limit or anything like that. And the town receives a very slight, like every community in Vermont, from the revenue from the actual tickets that are generated. But there's no incentive from the town to the sheriff to write all the tickets that they can or anything like that.
Adding to that is to ask about the time study, the blinky slow down signs that Patty likes to call them, the software upgrades that we do so that we can collect data, that's the time study. That data will inform where we would like to direct sheriffs.
Any other? Yep, I see.
Hi, Drew Pilcher, Poker Hill Road. So there is a lot of speeding on Poker Hill Road, and I do have two kids that live, we have a big enough yard, they don't really go in the road, but the road's right there. But we do have two of the blinky signs, and I appreciate the intent, but it's my personal opinion that I run on that road every day, and people don't really slow down for them, they're just kind of annoying. So my question would be, if the voters didn't really support the blinky signs and we didn't want to spend money on that, is there any way to get rid of them? I don't know if other people agree with me, but that's how I feel about them.
There's up front.
Hold on, Nate. To answer that question, we have collected preliminary data from I call them the blinky lights, and it does show most drivers do slow down. So maybe, for your handful of data points, you're not observing it, but for the collective of all the signs, we actually have physical data that shows most drivers, I think it's 65%, don't quote me on the exact number, are slowing down once the blinky light shows and flashes the speed of how fast they are going. That said, if there are spots where we need to redirect the sheriff, you need to have the sheriff enforce the speed limit, and that's a perfect example of where we should be directing the sheriff to spend some more time on Poker Hill and pull over citizens and give them a ticket. That will slow folks down.
Yeah, Guy Owens, Timber Ridge, and sort of to add on to that, there ought to be an avenue to suggest where we locate these things, perhaps. I mean, we have, some of them are fixed and some of them are mobile, and it's interesting to hear the data that we're collecting, and hopefully that's being passed on and gives some insight to where we should be patrolling more. But as we hear lots of these different places that are continuous problems, that rather than having it on us to call the Sheriff's Department or the Vermont State Police, would there be a way to suggest that, you know, this is a problem, perhaps we put one of these here for a couple of weeks to see when these times are that people are speeding? Is it, 7 to 9 in the morning, and that's when we need to concentrate our efforts to have a sheriff there at those times? But to be able to kind of have some input on when that data is collected and used.
If you want to.
So Underhill's a pretty big town. It has 52 miles of road. And we have basically 6 signs, so 5 of them are permanently placed. I share data with the sheriff on a monthly basis, probably. So we look at the timestamp. As Patty said, it's been proven that the signs are effective, because when we start to collect data, you see that a certain percentage of people are actually slowing down. So the sheriff knows when to target those areas, although there's some anomalies late in the evening or early in the morning. But we do have one portable sign that I can deploy. So reach out to me. Sorry, this mic is a little loud, but reach out to me either by email or give me a call and tell me, what your issue is, and I'm happy to go down and if there's a suitable place to put the portable sign and collect some data.
Just to remind people, we are talking about the budget, and I know some of this is addressing specific line items, and that's fine, but the question should be directed towards, questions or comments should be directed towards particular lines in the budget and what they mean and what they do. Is there any more discussion on the motion?
Penny Miller, 18 Bridle Trail. So trying to fit this into the budget, I have a question. Is there a line item in the budget for the paving from Park Street into the Underhill Flats post office, or is that not the town's responsibility?
That may be a highway budget question. If there's a line in the highway budget, we wouldn't be discussing that at this point.
It is a highway budget.
So that question can be brought up under Article 4. Are there any other questions on Article 3? Yes, there's one on the back. Thanks. No, I couldn't see it.
Monica Loscalzo, Sand Hill Road, and I recognize that perhaps we did steer away from budget specifically, but I do have a lot of concerns about any of my tax dollars going to data that's collected that we're not aware of, and I'm wondering if we could have a little bit of clarification as to what the data is that the signs are collecting. Is this identifiable data, or is this data points that are more generalized?
So yeah, this is general data. While the signs do have the ability to take photographs, those are, I can assure all of you right now, those have never been implemented. The only time the sign will take a picture is if you try to peel it off of the sign post and you try to steal it. And you laugh, but we had some kids do that last year. Fortunately, each one of these units has a GPS tracker. So we knew exactly where the sign was located. The state police went to Burlington, paid them a visit, and the sign showed back up the next day. So anyway, we do not collect personal data like that, and I will reassure you of that.
Any more discussion on Article 3? I don't see any. Then we can close discussion and move on to voting. I will read the article and then take vote at that point. Article 3, shall the voters approve total general fund expenditures of $1,996,715, of which $1,570,526 shall be raised by taxes and $426,189 by non-tax revenue. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes appear to have it, and the ayes have it. Thank you. Article 4, moving on. Shall the voters approve total highway fund expenditures of $3,160,966, of which $1,881,013 shall be raised by taxes and $1,279,953 by non-tax revenue. A motion is in order for Article 4. Is there a motion to open discussion? See a motion? Is there a second? And I see a second. I'll reread it one more time. Shall the voters approve total highway fund expenditures of $3,160,966, of which $1,881,013 shall be raised by taxes and $1,279,953 by non-tax revenue? The details of this article are found on the fiscal year 2027 highway budget on lines 209 through 270, which is on page 12 through 13 in the town report. Any discussion on the budget? I know there was one question going back, so if you, yeah.
So the post office you're referring to, Penny, I assume is on Park Street, right? So that's a privately owned post office, leased to the federal government. Harvest Run is not a town highway. So the last time we had paving done on Park Street, we paved from the center line 25 feet to the edge of our right-of-way. Anything beyond that point is either the folks in Harvest Run or the person that owns the post office to maintain.
Any other discussion on Article 4, highway budget? I'm not seeing any discussion. Or? There is. Great, thank you.
Penny Miller, 18 Bridle Trail. Just one general question, trying to understand a budget. If, say for instance, line 218, tree and brush removal, contractors and outside labor. So the last budget, it was over 47,000, but only 2,500 was actually spent. What happens to funds that aren't spent? Are they put back into some revenue line item, or what happens to them?
Brad?
Thanks, Brad.
So I think what you're seeing there, Penny, is the fiscal year is not finished out yet. So what you're seeing is just the data we had as that time was posted. I'm assuming you're talking about fiscal year 26, the one we're currently in. Well, we spend it all. We definitely spend it all, yes.
Any other discussion on Article 4? Is there any other discussion? If I'm not seeing you, you got to stand up, so. All right, great. I don't see any more discussion. So I will close discussion and reread the article. Shall the voters approve total highway fund expenditures of $3,160,966, of which $1,881,013 shall be raised by taxes and $1,279,953 by non-tax revenue? All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes appear to have it, and the ayes do have it. Moving on to Article 5. To transact any other business thought proper when met. Since there is nothing we'll be voting on, do not need a motion or a second on this article. The floor is now open for any additional business anyone would care to bring before this group. Is there any discussion on Article 5? I see somebody. Yeah. Oh.
Thanks, everyone. Hey, Tavid Bingham, Lower English Settlement Road. I am the chair of the Underhill Planning Commission as of the beginning of this year, and just wanted to take this opportunity to let everyone know that we are looking to fill 3 vacancies on the Underhill Planning Commission. After participating in this meeting, being a part of the Planning Commission is one of the best ways that you can participate in real democracy and help shape land use regulations in the town for years to come. So we've got a great town planner in Larry as of the beginning of last year, and would love to have you join us to continue that important work. Also just want to give thanks to Boris Seagraves, Carolyn Gregson, Sandy Wilmot, who have departed the Planning Commission since the last town meeting day, and then also give thanks to Jeff Markowski and Jen Dio, who recently are departing, and also Brian Tejan, who was the chair before me and has moved, but had a lot of great care and understanding in leading the Planning Commission's work over 6 years. So glad to be following in his footsteps, and please invite you to approach Larry or I after the meeting if you're interested. Thank you so much.
Article 5.
Sandy Wilmot, Poker Hill Road. I recognize that during this session we can't make any motions that are binding, but I have some, I've been following the news like many of you, and I have concerns about ICE and their activity in our nation. As close as Jeffersonville, I've heard there's hundreds of people in Vermont that have been apprehended. And I'm really concerned for our residents, people visiting, people that are not residents, and that could be exposed to an expanded ICE activity. Facilities that may be created, and warrantless digital searches. I don't think any of us want to be on a McCarthy-like list. So although we can't take anything binding, I really just want to see a show of hands of people that share this concern so that we can be united in this, or at least show a majority that will help guide our officials in their activities. So can I see a show of hands of how many people would encourage our select board, along with other state and federal elected officials, to take all necessary and possible steps to protect the sovereignty of our town, our state, and our U.S. residents? Thank you very much. I see it appears clear there's concern in the majority of residents here, so thank you very much.
Any other? Bob. So why don't you go?
Yeah, I'd like to speak because it's, if you, okay. Sandy, I just want to let you know, and the rest of the town of Underhill, that back in July 14th of 2022, the select board had a declaration of inclusion. I'm going to read that to all of you. The town of Underhill condemns racism and welcomes all persons, regardless of race, color, religion, national origin, sex, gender identity or expression, age, or disability, and wants everyone to feel safe and welcome in our community. As a town, we formally condemn all discrimination in all of its forms, commit to fair and equal treatment of everyone in our community, and will strive to ensure that all of our actions, policies, and operational procedures reflect this commitment. The town of Underhill has and will continue to be a place where individuals can live freely and express their opinions. And this was signed by the Select Board again on the 14th of July, 2022. It is my hope that at the conclusion of this town meeting, that the next Select Board will be taking this up and we will reaffirm a new declaration of inclusion to be very similar to what I just read.
Hi, my name's Kurt Belton. I live on Sand Hill Road with my wife Sue. And we both have been participating with a small group of folks interested in the restoration of Sand Hill Cemetery. And we've been meeting over a year since last town meeting. And there's a report on pages 45 and 46 of the town report that lists all the things that we've done and the hours that we put in, and many volunteers have contributed. One thing that didn't make the report is that we have 13 known veterans buried in that cemetery. 6 from the Civil War, 6 from the War of 1812, and 1 from the Revolutionary War. There now exists 2 or 3 metal medallions supporting flags that were put in place by the GAR organization sometime post-war, probably in the 1880s or 1890s. None of the others have bronze medallions, only made of plastic is what's up there now, and they are not very resilient. So you can see on a table that Sue and I have provided out by the water fountain, a summary of all that we've done, a poster showing some particular work on 2 interesting stones, and also a sample medallion that we ordered. We would like to encourage anyone who's interested in, to contribute to the purchase of the remaining medallions that might be installed this summer coming, with representation from an armed services color guard to dedicate or rededicate the graves of these veterans. And there's information out on that table showing how you can do that. And thank you very much.
Any other discussion on Article 5? Jean.
I'm Jean Archibald, Harvey Road, Underhill. I just want to make a few remarks about the library situation. Some of you are aware that in Jericho, they're voting to whether or not to pretty heavily support the what is called the Jericho Town Library in Jericho Center. I was the chairman of the board that set up the Deborah Rawson Library years ago, and there was a lot of discussion then about location, and in the end, we were very fortunate to get the ability to build the Deborah Rawson Library on school land, so we had no expenses for buying land. Members of the committee, people in the 2 communities, felt that it was quite a distance from Nashville Road in Jericho and that whole end of town. At that time, it was in Jericho Center, very small. They have a board, It is not a municipal library. The municipal library is Deborah Rawson, only one in the state of Vermont. And I've been concerned about the fact that it looks like there is a big group of opposition to continuing with the little library in Jericho Center. And there are two issues there. One is just as a library. The other is that building is probably one of the oldest buildings in our area. Beautiful little building that had been moved from the corner. And so I've been talking to some people. I don't know if there's anyone here from the Deborah Rawson Library presently on the board. I'm not, but I've got a big interest in it. And what I am hoping for is that members of the Deborah Rawson Library Board get together with the Jericho Town Library Board and talk to each other. There's, in the bylaws of the Deborah Rawson Board, there's a full page of policy about cooperation between the two. And in a sort of informal way, the little place in Jericho Center has been regarded as kind of a satellite. They've been considered a total library services for the two towns. There's some issues to be resolved, and both places are now talking about expansion. So both places, both libraries, the big one and the small one, are looking for money from the towns at the time when we're all very worried about our taxes. So I'm just trying to fill people in a little bit about it and urge members of anybody involved with libraries in the two towns to talk to each other.
Any other discussion on Article 5? And I'm just going to remind people, I am trying to keep the 3-minute limit as best I can. I don't always get the time started well, but please try and think of that yourselves as well. Thank you.
And Linda, Pleasant Valley Road. This question is for Kurt about the cemetery. I just wonder what the future plans are and what's coming next in terms of access and use and any talk about green burial.
Hi, again, Kurt Belton, 33 Sand Hill Road. The cemetery's at 6 Sand Hill Road or somewhere thereabout. I would say that last summer we could consider, in our minds, the committee's minds, phase 1. And it involved getting work sessions organized, and we had 2 advisors from the high school helping us out on one day. We had 30 volunteers with the Vermont Old Cemetery Association on another day, and then various other individual days. Through that period of time, and also over the winter, we've had members of the committee doing research to determine what the actual boundaries of the cemetery are, looking into replacing the fencing that had deteriorated over time, and also researching the right-of-way. That you can see a small, a one-track access from River Road as you come out of Underhill Center that slants up across the contours and borders private property. The only other access of getting to get a vehicle up there is through other private property, which we utilized with the kind permission of the folks who owned it last year. So phase 1 dealt with clearing, repair, re-exposure of old stones. Phase 2, unofficially, would be this summer. We're going to again solicit high school students during their community work day. We're also working with VOCA. We've already established another work day with the Vermont Old Cemetery Association for stone revealing and repairing and cleaning. We have included as part of the line item budget an expense for partial replacement of the fence. And there will be another tree removed. Last year, we removed a very large tree with a $1,000 grant from VOCA. That was potentially damaging stones. There's another tree that is damaging stones. So the access has not yet been perfectly clear with the research that our committee has done with the help of Brad down at Town Hall. So we're not sure if we can have access to the cemetery for any kind of burial, let alone green burial. So phase 3 is likely to include more fencing, but also to determine whether it can be reopened as an active cemetery. And at that time, something like the philosophy of green burial would be discussed.
Thank you. There was another in the middle.
Hi, Drew Pilcher, Poker Hill Road. I just had a general question. Is there a time prior to this where citizens can make input on these budgets in like more granular fashion than a yes or no? I think you've already mentioned this, but.
So at the beginning of every select board meeting, there is a public comment period in the beginning and the end. So throughout the year, certainly everyone has the opportunity to come forward and make their feelings known about any particular item, regardless of whether it's a budget or not. And we hold budget talks usually in the fall, I would say, usually after or around Veterans Day. So those are when those conversations take place, and then there is a informational hearing or on the budget that we just had last week. So there are times, certainly any time throughout the year, you certainly could, or anyone could come forward and discuss their ideas with the board.
So correct me if I'm wrong. So the budget may be available in the fall, and then there's several meetings where, citizens can suggest changes, and that those might actually, they might see whether those are made or not.
I would say typically, correct, sometime in early November, late October timeframe is usually when the select board starts to craft the different versions of the budget to see where we're going to end up. And so during those discussions, which are warned, the public certainly could come in and, give, input at that time or throughout the year, but that's usually when those types of conversations are taking place.
Thank you.
Any more discussion on Article 5?
Sorry, I just wanted to add a comment to follow up on that we really welcome feedback and response from people. I think the final budget that we have presented to you today, I think was our 11th version, 10th? But we go through multiple, iterations of this and really start at a big picture and then fine tune to really try and be as responsible and responsive as we can. So anytime in that process, people are welcome. The budget as presented would be a part of the warrant packet, so everybody can review it. And if there is feedback you want to offer as that process is being built, we would welcome people to come to the meetings and share their thoughts on that. So thank you.
Hi everyone, Heather Murphy, Silly Hill Road. I just moved here in August, but I want to give a little introduction. I think on page 12 of the budget, line 187, there's an allocation for Winooski Natural Resources. I think that's the Winooski NRCD. And I just wanted to highlight that there's 14 conservation districts throughout the state. Winooski NRCD is the one that services Underhill. We service all of Washington, Chittenden, and 3 towns in Orange counties. But alas, I'm one of the people that works for that district, one of the 3 staff, and then we have a district manager. And I just wanted to say hello, introduce myself. I service Underhill, I service many towns, but I'm an agricultural conservation specialist. I used to work for the USDA. I came to the conservation district in June. So I'm kind of new, but I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to help y'all with any of the needs that you have. We also have a conservation specialist as well. So if you have conservation needs or agricultural needs, just, let us know. We also have a website, so.
Any other discussion on Article 5? I don't see anybody. Then I will close discussion on Article 5. The remaining articles are Australian ballot questions. I remind you that the polls are open until 7 o'clock this evening. I will read the remaining articles, but, excuse me. I will read the remaining articles, but no motion or second is needed. No amendments can be made, and there will only be discussion of them with no further actions at this meeting. Article 6, to elect all town officers and school directors as required by law. Any comments on that? I don't see. Article 7, shall the voters of the town approve appropriating $1,000 to support Wood for Good, a Jericho-based nonprofit that donates firewood to be raised by taxes to support town residents in need of wood for heating or other purposes? Any comments on Article 7? Not seeing any, we'll move on to Article 8. Shall the voters of the town allocate $300,000 from the fiscal year 2025 budget surplus to the Highway Contingency Reserve Fund? Any comments on Article 8? Not seeing any. Article 9. Shall the voters of the town authorize the purchase of a pre-owned rubber tire backhoe at the cost not to exceed $60,000 to be raised by taxes? Any comments on Article 9? Okay, Article 10. Shall the voters of the town authorize the town's option to purchase the 2021 dump truck currently being leased by the town at a cost not to exceed $40,000 to be raised by taxes? Any comments on Article 10? Not seeing any. Article 11. Shall the voters of Underhill advise the Select Board to adopt the following pledge? We affirm our commitment to freedom, justice, and equality for the Palestinian people and all people, and we oppose all forms of racism, bigotry, discrimination, and oppression, and we declare ourselves an apartheid-free community, and to that end, we pledge to join others in working to end all support to Israel's apartheid regime, settler colonialism, and military occupation. Any comments on Article 11? Not seeing any. That would end the articles that we're considering here today. Before there's a clarification.
The only thing I just want to point out, and we've repeated this over and over, but Articles 7, 9, and 10 are not included in the budget. So if they pass today, they will get added to the budget as it's printed here. So that's just all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thanks. Before I ask for a motion for adjournment, just remind everyone that there is lunch provided by the Lions Club here, so please stick around if you'd like to partake. And at this point, a motion for adjournment would be in order. So move. Is there a second? I saw a lot of hands. Thank you. All in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes appear to have it. Thank you very much. I appreciate everyone's patience. Thanks.